random. They're fueled by gang conflicts. We know who they are, but we continue to send a message that it's okay to commit these crimes. We're all supposed to be on the same team. All of those people that I mentioned before need to work together against the violence so that our communities can rebuild. And despite what we saw this weekend, I'm still pleased that between CPD's work, the mayor's investments, and the work of our community members, that we still see reductions in gun violence this year. But we really have a lot more work to do, and we need everyone to come to the table. I'll take questions. Well, both of them have been reported missing, one for 24 hours, about 24 hours, and the other one for 48 hours. One of the individuals has no criminal history or anything of that nature. One of the individuals is actually known to CPD, but I'll let First Deputy Riccio talk more about that.
Sure. Yeah, they were reported missing by their mothers. Again, one after 24 hours, the other one after 48 hours. There were the mother actually received anonymous message saying that this party believed that she could find her son in a wooded area over at 130th and oh God, I don't remember the cross street roads, 130th and Rhodes. Detectives went over to that area, and some family members went over to that area as well, and located both of the victims deceased in a wooded area over there. No, detectives from Area South found the body. When she received this text message, she was actually with Area South detectives at the time. So she was talking to Area South detectives. As soon as they reported a missing, we started a missing persons investigation. And the detectives were following up on whatever leads they could. And they were actually with the mother of one of these young men when the mother received a message and said, hey, I just received a message that my son could be found over in this wooded area. They went over there together and began searching, and the detectives found him. Yes.
Any clue?
I'm sorry?
Any clue of the motive?
Oh, the motive? There's a couple different ones. We actually have two persons of interest that we're talking to right now in Area South. There's a couple different things going around. We haven't ruled out the potential for robbery as one of the motives.
Superintendent.
Well, you know what? It's just a matter of being accountable. You know, everyone has to be accountable. You know, myself, the first deputy, the mayor and his staff, our judicial partners, and the community. Everybody has to be accountable, especially the people that decide to pull these triggers. They don't get a pass from us. There is no pass from us, you know, but the simple fact of it is, you know, the police department can't do it alone. You know, I know we have some strained relationships in certain parts of the city. I recognize that. You know, I'm a black man that's lived in Chicago his entire life, so I know the tension between the police department and the black community. But at the end of the day, these individuals that keep pulling these triggers just feel like they can continue to do it because they're getting away with it. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. We're not splitting the atom here. You know, this is simply people that decide to commit these crimes. If people don't give us the information we need and our judicial partners don't hold them accountable, would you stop if that's what you wanted to do? You know, it's ridiculous. You know, I'm out in the communities all the time, and people are sick and tired of it. And they should be. They should be. You know, so we just have a culture in Chicago where individuals, first of all, we have too many guns in this city. Just way too many guns. That's obvious. You know, people like to compare us with New York and L.A., but the fact of it is they don't have the illegal gun problem in those cities that we have because we continuously fail to hold people accountable. And until we do that, we're going to continue seeing it. These individuals are showing us every day that they're not afraid to do it. And we have to ask ourselves, why? Why aren't they afraid? There's a reason for it, because the consequence of it just isn't there in their minds. Listen, crime isn't just about what the police do. Crime is about what the criminals do. Let's not forget, the police aren't the ones out there doing it. We can only do so much. Now, can we do better? Of course we can. But it's just not about that. Crime is a very complex issue. You know, when you look at resources, educational opportunities, health care, mental health treatment, all of those things play a part in it. You know, but I have to tell you, you know, we look at crime every day, every hour, and we readjust. But there's only so much the police can do. We cannot be on every street corner of this city every moment of the day. We just can't. That's an impossibility. It's unreasonable. There's no police department in this country that can do that. You know, so it takes all of us, the police, the elected officials, the clergy, our community residents, and you know, I have to give certain community residents all the kudos in the world, because they really are stepping up to try to help stem this. But the fact of it is, we need everybody to do it.
Superintendent, just for context, did you have...
Yeah, we did. And, you know, like I said, we dispersed quite a few gatherings that could potentially turn violent. You know, so we'll keep doing that. You know, we'll keep doing that until we see things stabilize a bit more. I don't think discrimination plays any part of it. I just think that in certain communities, we have certain individuals that want to continue to take advantage and just terrorize those communities. That's what I think. You know, when I talked about being a black man, I'm talking about in terms of the strained relationship with the police in that particular community in terms of getting the information that we need. You know, I know, and, you know, let's not negate the fact that people are afraid in certain instances, too.
Superintendent, can you address...
Yeah, you know, my heart goes out to that. That was a tragic incident, you know, and I tell you, anytime you have loss of life in this city, especially under circumstances like that, you know, it's difficult, you know, so I understand their anguish. You know, that's not easy. You know, losing a loved one under any circumstance is difficult. It is, you know, and as soon as we can hopefully provide them some relief, you know, we will certainly do that, because just to assure them and to let them know certain things about the circumstances of what occurred. About the incident with the young man at some point. Yeah. No. Well, anytime you have a juvenile involved in releasing video, it's different. You know, so we'll look at everything, and when feasible and lawfully we're able to then. But of course, you know, before we released anything to the family, I would like to release anything to the public. Certainly would like the family to see it first.
Persons of interest in the
600 extra officers?
Yes. All right, thank you all. Go ahead. Thank you all.
There, we just heard from the police superintendent in Chicago. Sadly, we've seen this sort of press conference before over the weekend. 61 people shot, 8 of them killed. It was just a couple of weekends ago that we were reporting on, you know, the sort of largest number of shootings over the weekend in Chicago. And clearly, law enforcement officers are exasperated. They are desperate to find ways to slow down this pace. But the truth of the matter is, and one of the things that the police superintendent has brought up over and over again, is that it is a law enforcement issue, but it's much larger than that. There are societal issues at play that, you know, the police cannot do this on their own.
And they are facing increasing numbers of
individuals who are involved, affiliated with gangs, and that is a whole larger issue about why people join gangs and what that means in a particular neighborhood. That it essentially, what it sounds like from the police superintendent is that they will not be able to accomplish this, whatever it is that they are trying to accomplish, which is essentially to reduce the level of violence and killings that happen in the Chicago area, unless there are other factors involved in helping them do so. And, you know, people ranging from the President of the United States to his own attorney, Rudy Giuliani, have commented on social media about the violence in Chicago, but they haven't offered any solutions, which is what the superintendent is saying that they need. It's not going to be solved with just police officers, because it sounds as if this violence is, they're outmanned and outgunned.
Well, one thing that he brings, a point that he brings up a number of times is that, we're talking about a small group of people who are violent, and they're the ones sort of responsible for much of the mayhem. But also, to remind everybody, Chicago has some of the most restrictive gun laws in this country, but a lot of the surrounding areas and surrounding states don't. And that's part of the problem, too, the number of guns that are able to get into Chicago from outside areas.
All right, we're going to be talking to our Dean Reynolds, who's in Chicago at the moment, and he's been listening to this press conference. Dean, I mean, as Anne-Marie pointed out, we've had press conferences like this in the past from Chicago police officers, from the authorities there. What's your sense if they plan on doing anything different than what they have been doing for the last couple of years?
Sadly, nothing. They have, introduced technological advances in crime fighting and things like that. But the appeal almost weekly is for cooperation from the communities where this violence occurs, as well as a plea for tougher consequences for the people who are doing the shooting. Eddie Johnson, the superintendent of police, was talking about how these are the same people, week in and week out, who do not fear the consequences of shooting people. They believe that they can get off if they are caught. They believe that they will not be, quote, ratted out, unquote, by their neighbors. There are very few consequences against them because of laws here or judicial leniency in this city. So what comes through week after week is abundant frustration by the police and by city officials.
Yeah, I remember the last time there was something like this, I spoke to you, a press conference like this, the mayor was there as well, and it almost came across like they were scolding members of the community for not doing enough. I wonder how that's going over in these neighborhoods that are afflicted with this violence.
Well, you know, the neighborhoods we're talking about are usually the poorest neighborhoods where there is not a tried and true path out of poverty. So drug dealing and prostitution are ways to make a living. You know, I've been told when I've investigated these things, if your grandmother depends on you to provide the rent for her apartment and you're getting the money from drug dealing, she is unlikely to turn you in if you're involved in a shooting against another gang member. And that's what's happening. These are often gang members who are block by block involved in turf wars. You can go 2 blocks this way, it's another gang. 2 blocks this way, it's a different gang. And they don't like encroachment on their turf because there's a lot of drug dealing going on. And that gets us to the Mexican cartels and all of the stuff that we heard from the DEA at a press conference last week. So this is a multi-layered problem on top of which lies manifest distrust between the community and the Chicago Police Department.
All right, Dean Reynolds reporting from us in Chicago. Dean, thank you as always for your reporting. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Vlad.
All right, let's show you now a live look outside the courthouse in Alexandria, Virginia, where the jury is in day 3 of deliberations in the Paul Manafort case.
Yeah, and the cameramen are lurking, waiting for something to
some
shoot.
movement.
Yeah, our CBS News Washington correspondent Paula Reed is there, and we'll have an update a little bit later for us. Hello, everyone. I'm Anne-Marie Green.
And I'm Vladimir Duterte. Thanks for joining us. So we want to show you some really frightening video from Montana, where firefighters are now battling 9 days of a wildfire in Glacier National Park. Now, this video shows just how terrifying these fires are. A father and son were backpacking there when the fire grew in size.
You're looking at their desperate attempt to escape the flames by car, only to be blocked by a fallen tree. CBS News correspondent DeMarco Morgan has their story.
I think we can drive through this. What? Holy bacon sh**.
Surrounded by towering flames, Justin Bilton and his father frantically tried to escape.
Dad, this is insane. I know. We don't want to get trapped in here.
You can hear the panic in Justin's voice as